What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Down Once More. I'm your host, Matt, and this week's pod episode is going to be a little different than some of the other ones. I've got some Broadway musical stuff I'm going to talk about at the beginning, including some discussions of upcoming Broadway tour season, and then it's going to be primarily more of kind of a life update, personal episode. I usually don't get too personal on here, but I've alluded to things in the past probably year in episodes on here, and so figured I'm at a point now. I'm going to share some of them on here. If that's not your thing, if you're just here for the musical stuff, feel free to peace out whenever. There's time codes in the description of the video and on podcast platforms. So do whatever's best for you. If you stick around, thank you. Drop a like, follow, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Do all that for the video. Let's get into Broadway new news and announcement first. First off, Jeremy Jordan, one of my all-time favorite musical performers, is going to be taking over for Jonathan Groff on Just in Time on Broadway, playing the role of Bobby Darin, and Jeremy Jordan's performances will start on April 21st. I love Jonathan Groff. I love Jeremy Jordan. I'm really excited to see this kind of transfer and how that role goes. Jeremy Jordan brings so much energy and enthusiasm to every role that he portrays, so I think he's going to crush it taking over for Jonathan Groff in this. Next, Suffs, which is the final Broadway show I will be seeing as part of my current Broadway tour season. The pro shot of it is debuting on PBS Great Performances on May 8th. So PBS Great Performances is where we first got to see Next to Normal, the West End pro shot of that, albeit in a highly censored version. So far, I'm not too familiar with Suffs yet. I'm excited to see it. I've heard great things. It had a number of nominations when it first debuted, one of the newer musicals that's touring. So I will be seeing it before May 8th, so I will be giving my live tour thoughts on the pod prior to the pro shot, and then maybe we'll talk about the pro shot once that comes out a little bit. So if that's your thing, you can check it out on PBS on May 8th. And that's kind of it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on in the world of Broadway, but those were the key things that stood out to me that I wanted to highlight in this episode for news. But it was announced my next Broadway tour season at my theater, the Lead Center. They are doing their announcement event on March 1st. So next week's episode will hopefully be with Brad reviewing The Emperor's New Clothes, the 1987 Sid Caesar musical that is on Amazon Prime. And so hopefully we'll get to record a review for that. Life's been crazy, as I'll talk about in a bit. So the stars have to align a little bit, but that's the plan as of right now. So that'll be the episode on February 25th. And then on March 4th will be what's coming to streaming theaters in the month of March. And then I will also talk about what will be next up on my Broadway tour. So I wanted to kind of do my predictions, build my dream 5-show tour cast. Sage and I talked about that a little bit at the end of a couple episodes ago, but looking at what's actually touring, what new tours will be launching in the 26-27 season, I kind of put together a little bit of a list here. So some new ones that are going to be touring that aren't currently touring yet is Heathers is going to be coming over to the US in 2027. So I don't know if that will be at the end of this upcoming touring season or beginning of the next one, but Death Becomes Her is starting a national tour. Spamalot's continuing their national tour. And maybe Happy Ending is starting a national tour as well. So out of some of the currently announced ones and these new ones, my ideal pick for top 5 shows would be Heathers, Death Becomes Her, The Outsiders, Spamalot, and then probably maybe Happy Ending. There are also new productions of Beauty and the Beast running, The Great Gatsby, and Juliet 6. Those are still going on, but those 5 are kind of the ones that I would love to see. I do not think there's any way I'm going to get all 5 of those next season. I would be too spoiled. We usually have a few older ones thrown in there, a few non-equity tours, it seems like the Shrek relaunch of that. So we'll see. I'll talk about it on there. I think maybe get 2 of those in there. I could see Spam-A-Lot coming because it hasn't made it to Lincoln or Omaha. And I could see Outsiders coming because it was in Omaha last year. So I could see it making its way to Lincoln this year. That usually happens. But the ones, Heather's is the one that I'm hoping for the most, as well as maybe Happy Ending, just because I know I've heard nothing but good things of it, but I found myself struggling to get into listening to just the cast recording. And I know a lot of these musicals, seeing them live unlocks something new for me. I struggled with Hadestown for that same reason, getting into the cast recording, and then I saw it live and it became one of my favorite shows I've seen. I raved about it on my review for it here. So tune in 2 weeks episode to find out what I will actually be seeing in the next Broadway tour. I will also be seeing on March 5th. I'm seeing The Music Man. So I don't know if it'll be the next week or the week after that. I'm going to bring Amy back onto the pod, and we're going to talk the Music Man movie, the live tour. It's going to be a mega episode on the Music Man because she's worked behind the scenes in production of like not national tours, but like regional theater of it. So I thought it would be fun to have her back on as a guest. Had a lot of fun the last time she joined. So it'll be a good time. Okay, that does it for kind of musical fun talk. Life update. So if you watched last week's episode or even listened to it, I recorded it, edited it, put it out from the hospital. I said we were on about week and a half being in the hospital. I was fully prepared to have this week's episode be from the hospital as well. I just got home yesterday. I'm recording this on Monday the 16th. We got home yesterday after being in the hospital for 14 days. We started, I'm going to back up. Basically, the reason my wife's been dealing with for almost a year now, or a little over a year, a constant pressure pain base of the skull. Started out where it was lower, like manageable, like about a 2 pain level at the beginning of the day, get worse as the day goes on. And throughout the year, went to different primary care, different specialists. They were at first they thought, oh, well, it's because your spine. You're working on a computer, looking at that. Even though you haven't had a single day without a headache, it's probably something with your spine. So we're going to do physical therapy. Didn't do anything. We're going to send you to a pain specialist, do some injections. Didn't do anything. Did a bunch of MRIs, started doing CT scans, tried to get into a neurologist. Neurologists have like over 3-month waiting periods to get into them here in my city. It's healthcare systems stuff's ridiculous, but constant battle. Finally, we got into a neurologist in October, and he wanted to do a lumbar puncture, which is spinal tap, same thing, similar to like with the epidural, but they go into the dura layer at the bottom of the spine and withdraw spinal fluid to run tests on it. They test the spinal fluid pressure, things like that to help find out, is there an infection? Is there something else? Because they're trying to figure out, the headaches had progressively gotten worse to where it's starting at like 6 in the morning and getting worse throughout the day, kind of affecting ability to go and enjoy anything for, like I said, at that point, it'd been like 8 months. So they did lumbar puncture. After that, it kind of started a cascade of things going downhill. So within 36 hours after that, we were in the ER with extreme excruciating pain. Did a blood patch, which brought the pain back down to the normal baseline. But within like a week and a half, 2 weeks, it was back up at like 9.5 pain scale. We were back in the ER, did another blood patch, didn't provide relief. They sent us home. We're back in the ER a few days later, which ended up turning into a 6-day inpatient stay. And an urgent referral because when they did the lumbar puncture, they noticed the opening pressure in the spine. And disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. This is stuff that I have heard from doctors through all these appointments and everything over the past year. So I may get some things wrong. So this is not medical advice. When they did the lumbar puncture, they noticed the opening pressure in the spinal column was very low, which often can indicate that you have a cerebrospinal fluid leak causing low pressure in your brain, which causes your brain to almost kind of like sag back there, which leads to that pressure headache in the base of your skull. Not fun. You usually get a little bit of relief laying down. And at the beginning of the year, my wife was getting some relief laying down. It got to, as the year went on, it wasn't nearly as bad laying down, but it was still pretty high pain level. So they tried to do some scans, see if they could identify, confirm there was a leak. They weren't finding anything on the basic scans that the neurologist here could do. So his referral was on to a little bit more specialty clinic, UNMC, about an hour away, and sent an urgent referral. Well, this was at the time when we were hospitalized at the beginning of December. And so I stayed with her the whole time, was able to take some time off work, shout out my boss and everyone at work helping cover for me and being flexible during this time. But we stayed there, and the soonest they could get us in for the urgent referral was a little over a month away. And so we scheduled that appointment. A little bit of dread. They were able to, through constant migraine cocktails and fluids and meds, get the pain down to like a 4 or a 5 at the hospital during that 6-day stay, and we went home. After that, within less than a week, pain was back up high level where basically just had to lay down, but we knew there was nothing really that could be done through ER or here at that point. So it was just riding it out until we could get to the appointment to see the specialist. I took some more time off work. It was around the holidays. Stayed home, do what we could to try to make things manageable. Didn't do much in the month of November. December then, November was after the lumbar puncture. The hospital stay was beginning of December. December was mostly stayed at home. I didn't do anything for Christmas. Didn't do anything for New Year's. See anyone, just stayed home. I focused on trying to help her, make her as comfortable as I can, and deal with things. And it's been a long few months. I can't imagine constantly having that pain, wondering, just feeling like you just have to wait, wondering if it's ever going to have to go away. Finally, we got to see the specialist at the beginning of January. But shortly after New Year's, when I had some time off, ended up asking in-laws to come down and stay with us so that they could help my wife out so I could go to work, because had a few big projects, deadlines at work. Obviously, family comes first, and my boss was understanding of that. But there wasn't much I could physically do. It was just someone being there to support and help if needed. And so luckily, in-laws were retired, willing to do that. So they came down beginning of January, and so I had my in-laws living with us for the entire month of January. Saw the specialist. You want to do this procedure, which is a myelogram, which basically it's similar to a lumbar puncture, except they inject dye in the spinal column, pressurize it, watch on an x-ray to see as it travels up the spinal column, try to see the flutter where it could be going into a vein. Because there's a couple different ways where a leak can be found down dura, or if it's leaking from the spinal column directly into a vein, then that doesn't show up as much on like MRIs, even with like, it's a little bit harder to diagnose. And this from my understanding of it, I could be wrong, but this is my understanding from what they were told and everything over the past couple months. So he's going to make an appointment for us to get in and get those procedures done. Yeah, you have to do 2 different ones because you start out on one side and then the other. You lay on your side, kind of head down, and so it travels, and they look at one side and then they look at the other another time. And you have to space them out to give the dye time to clear. So the earliest they could get us in for that was February 2nd. So it queued pretty much another month of waiting. Procedures were scheduled February 2nd, 4th. And also during that time, nothing was helping with the pain. And so it was just basically try to assist, do everything we could. Wife was pretty much bedridden for the entire month of December, in January, and a chunk of November. So came to February, the procedures were scheduled the 2nd and 4th. We went up the night before, Sunday night, first, because she had check-in at 5:30 a.m. the next day. Checked her in, did the first procedure. Doctor's like, you know what? I think we may have found a spot with it. I need to have the radiologist look at it. It's not open shut. It's not barn door. It's not clear, but I think we may have found it. And we can try to do the procedure today to seal it up, and then we'll do the other side on Wednesday still. So chilling in the recovery area, which nice and loud, lots of things going on, headache still, give you some drugs, waited. And then doctor came back, talked to us, said he talked to the radiologist. They weren't convinced that it was actually a leak. Think it was maybe just a flutter on the imaging. And so recommended waiting till the second procedure was done on Wednesday. So we waited, got admitted into the hospital after that. That was always the plan, to be admitted between the two procedures. So we had to wait till the room was available. Got sent up to the room Monday afternoon, stayed there. And let me tell you, every hospital has the same like chair in it. The arms can fold down from the side so patients can get in it. And it's not designed for comfort or longevity, but I spent about 80% of my time in this chair, and sleeping in this chair. But we were admitted in the hospital, slept in the room, helped every night. They were starting to do pain meds every 2 hours. Cycle them to try to stay on top of things and make it manageable. Because I don't know if you know this, if you get a giant needle shoved into your spinal column, and into your back, it fucking hurts and causes pain and then achiness with that as well. So that, on top of the headache, pain meds didn't really do anything for the head, but did knock out back pain. So getting woken up every couple hours at night, both for them to take vitals, to do meds, help with bathroom because you're on IV, things like that. Just like mobility, because she's in extreme pain. And basically anytime she'd walk in, we have to have her head hunched down. And so, and then it was just that whole thing too, is just like kudos, shout out to my wife, because like that would be like mentally would break anybody. Just dealing with that constant pain, feeling like you're never going to get relief, feel like it's never going to end. What if there's no solution? Is rough. So then Wednesday morning came, they did the second side, and we were waiting. Doctor came up and told us they were going to need to redo it, because basically the needle didn't fully puncture the dura, dye got outside, traveled into, and so it wasn't clear if the dye was from the spinal column going into veins or if it was from there. So we were going to redo it on Friday. And what he said he wanted to do in the meantime was ICP monitoring, so intracranial pressure monitoring. Usually they do it in trauma patients who have high pressure and swelling in the brain to monitor it. But he said the reason they do it is it helps gauge what your spinal fluid, what that pressure is inside your skull, to verify if you have low pressure or if it could be high pressure or if you have normal pressure. Because a lot of times the symptoms of having high spinal fluid pressure, high pressure in your brain, it can mirror symptoms of low pressure at times. So we wanted to verify that was low pressure that we were dealing with. So what that consists of is them slicing the skin, nerve, drilling a little hole into your skull, putting a bolt and a wire in it, and hooking it up to a monitor that's constantly reading the pressure. And then when you sit up, when you walk, when you stand, looking and seeing if there is drop or change in the pressure if you're laying down. Standard pressure is, they were telling us, usually around like 12, 14. That's where you're looking at. She was laying down, and of course you had to be admitted to the ICU for this. So a doctor wanted to do this monitoring. It was going to be the next step if they didn't find anything conclusive in the myelogram scans. If they didn't find a definitive leak, he was wanting to do that next anyway. So he said, since we're having to wait till Friday to do the next myelogram, let's do the ICP monitoring in between if you're open to it. So we did that, just because we didn't want to delay anything, and we're just desperate for answers at this point. And so you had to go up to the ICU for that, because you need to have more attentive care than like the 4-hour shifts that the nurses on the floor have, which I do just want to give a shout out to the nurses that we had during this. Especially, we had some like amazing nurses who were extra personable, going above and beyond, checking in when they weren't assigned to our rooms, like before they left on their shift, like checking in, letting us know they're thinking, wanting to get updates, and it was very thoughtful. So shout out Megan, Alexis, Gloria, Marcia, Scott, like so many great providers that are giving care. Nurses do so much, and just having some conversations with them. At this hospital, the majority of the nurses were travel nurses, so they're working on like 13 or 26-week contracts, going different places. It sounded like a great way to see the world, but just only like there's just a nursing shortage, they were telling us. So there's so many travel nurses. It really kind of like blew up after COVID too, the travel nurse industry, just going where they were needed and going on those different contracts. But if the people who have the patience and the empathy and everything to be able to do that, and resilience too, just shout out them. Like I said, the nurses we had were amazing, and the doctors too. So did the ICP monitoring, saw definitely low pressure. We confirmed that. So yay, that was some kind of answer. It was down to like -15 when she was standing up. So definitely low, not great. So they did the next test on Friday. Also wasn't necessarily clear. We got a call from the doctor later. He said that on it, there were a couple spots that they weren't quite sure what they were. It didn't look like nerve clusters, didn't look like veins. So they wanted to do additional MRIs, CTs, so they could compare them against each other. Also, I'm going to say this, my wife told me it was okay to share all of this. By the way, I'm not just speaking out of turn here. So you told us on Friday night they were going to do some more imaging and then have another imaging done in a few days, a CT scan, to be able to compare them against, because he wanted to look at them side by side. So he said it's going to be slower over the weekend, so it probably won't be till next week. So we went back down out of ICU. They took the bolt out of the head, stitched that back up, and then, which that was a nightmare. Like I just I had to help like hold the wire and bolt and help like with the nurses, just different things with like in the bathroom, things like that, and help make sure that the bolt didn't like drag, because there's like a little like almost like power bank, it looked like, that it plugged into and attached and fed into the monitor, and so it was weighted down, so you couldn't just move freely. You had to be careful and move it and kind of balance it. And so helping with that was nerve-wracking. Worried I was gonna like drop it and just pull the wire out of her head, and just not a super fun experience. But we got back down, and then this was like the mental thing on, especially my wife and me as well, which I don't blame her. Like, you're like, we've been here for almost a week. We are not getting answers. They haven't found anything. What if they don't find it? What next? And so just waiting, which waiting sucks. I don't know if you know that, but we're down there. Nurse is doing what they can to make us comfortable. She's still in pain, still wondering if we're not going to get answers. Talked to the doctor on Monday. He hadn't been able to connect with the radiologist because he wanted to work with a specific one to be able to compare and make sure everything was good, because it is something that's a little bit finicky and harder to diagnose and locate where that leak could be and how to fix it. And then the doctor was neurosurgeon, because that's who you work with, a neurosurgeon. He had surgeries all day, then had surgeries and clinics in a different city the next day. So he didn't get to look at everything until Wednesday. And then he told us that they looked at it. They still weren't able to necessarily confirm anything. So they wanted to do a dynamic CT myelogram, which is basically the same thing. They inject dye, except you're doing it in a CT machine. So they run multiple CT scans during it. That gives them a better, more like 3D imaging than like the 2D of the X-ray with the standard myelogram. And said he's going to talk to the IR team, the radiologists, and see when they could get that in. Probably going to be Thursday or Friday. Thursday came and went. We didn't hear anything. More discouragement kind of started to creep in because it had been a week and a half at that point in the hospital, and thinking if they don't do this until Friday, if they don't find anything, he said there was basically one more test they could do there and then would probably be referring us on to like Mayo Clinic. So we're like, they're not gonna do that till Friday. Even if they find something, it's gonna be Monday before they're able to do anything. Then if they don't find anything there, Mayo has a long wait time. It could be months. So trying to just stay positive. Shout out Nurse Lexus, just reminding, positive mental attitude. Just got to try to focus on that, which is hard in those situations. But the nurses were all like so encouraging, and we were lucky we had Megan was one we had for I think 3 days of our stay. Then we had Gloria for 3 days. Then we had Alexis for 4 days. And so having some of that consistency was nice too. And so shout out all of them again. And it was just brutal. And then finally we found out Friday morning that the scan was scheduled for Friday afternoon at 2:30, which also kind of settled in. Okay, we're probably not going to find out anything today. We're going to have to wait till Monday. They did the scan. Doctor came up shortly after and said, "We found it. Let's go get you fixed." I already called the anesthesiologist. I called my wife, canceled plans because it was like 5:00 at this time almost. We're just going to do it tonight and get it fixed. And so she went down for surgery and they got it fixed, finally been able to, for the first time in like 3 months, sit up to eat, stand up with her head up, walk, all those things. So just shout out Dr. Borge, UNMC, and all the nurses, all the IR people, all the care. It was just finally just not giving up after the first test didn't show anything, not just referring at that point. The just kind of determination to keep doing things was amazing. And it was a difficult time. Like I said, I cannot imagine like the mental toll and the physical toll being in that much pain would take. I know just like for me, like it was more of like an emotional toll, just knowing that there wasn't really anything I can do and just trying to do everything I can. But I will say it was rude of my wife on one of the first nights saying how comfortable the hospital bed was when I'm sitting and sleeping in this recliner for 14 days in a row. I mean, who was really suffering then? It's clearly a joke. I know it was her. But finally, we were able to get discharged on Sunday and head home. And it was weird. I'd not been outside in almost 2 weeks. I'd been living off, the hospital had a 24/7 Subway, so I had not had Subway in probably like 6 years. And then I had Subway like 10 times. They also had their cafes, their cafeteria at UNMC. make a mean smash burger. Like, it was simple, but it was delicious. And maybe that's just because I was cooped up in a hospital. They had a barbecue place at the cafe, which it wasn't like the best barbecue, but it had a really good like Carolina barbecue mustard one that was delicious on the pulled pork. They had some good cheesy mashed potatoes. It was pretty solid. So, and the hospital food, not bad. They had solid chocolate brownies. Wife told me that she was getting, and like the room service stuff there. So, all I have to say, I should be at a point where things start evening out and able to do, um, get back to planning and some more logistics on the podcast. Cause like, that's why I didn't go see a Christmas Story, which is part of the Broadway season. Cause helping out with my wife dealing with, this. Cause like I said, that's obviously the priority over a podcast or work or anything. Family, loved ones, that's what's truly important. Those are the people who are still going to be there. And so, just super glad and thankful for like, and my parents stepped up, like brought us stuff when we were in the hospital, and that was awesome. And just so many other people. So shout out the in-laws for being able to help and stay for the month of January and help keep things like where I was able to function a little bit with work and help make my wife as comfortable as possible. Shout out all the doctors, all the caregivers, just everyone throughout this whole entire process. It's been over a year of trying to find some kind of answers, and the past 4 months were rough. And so I'm excited. There's still like some like weakness, some headaches, which is normal after as your body tries to like level out. And also just from being on more constant meds in the hospital, getting off of those. So she's not back to 100% yet, but able to sit up, watch TV again, walk with her head up, everything like that, which is huge. And so excited to see. But it's been a bitch of a couple years with 1-2 punch. With the year before this, was really rough. We had to put down our dog, that we'd had for years, and it came out of nowhere. And so that was devastating and hit us pretty hard the year before. And then to be hit right the next year with this like low spinal fluid and low pressure headaches, which are brutal. From everything she told me, I obviously didn't experience it, but it just sounds miserable, like stuff that nothing is providing relief and you can't do anything. That is debilitating. That is discouraging. That sucks. So shout out everyone that deals with like chronic pain, chronic illness. I'm luckily blessed enough that I have not had to deal with any of that yet in my life, knock on wood. And so, and shout out to like nurses and emergency responders and doctors, everyone that's out there like doing that work and has the dedication to try to find someone. I know, just having a couple of those nurses that were like definitely a bright spot in some of the harder days, or would just come in and have like just some normal conversations about random things, not just about the pain or the hospital stay. So it gives you like some sense of normalcy in there. Like we watched the Super Bowl in the hospital. They had a Super Bowl special for dinner that was like nachos that were delicious, actually. But yeah, it's been a long couple weeks, and like I said, I usually don't talk too much personal stuff on here, but it was something like we thought we were going to be there maybe a week max. We thought we'd go in, get the scans Monday, Wednesday. If they found it, then we'd probably do a procedure Friday, be home over the weekend. And so it turned into a 2-week stay with a lot more like traumatic things for her, like having to get a hole drilled in your head and a bolt and wire put in for monitoring constantly, having to redo things that you think you're going to get answers from, and then things just aren't clear, and you're having doctors and neurology teams tell you, well, you're just an enigma, so it's a little bit more challenging. That's not what you want to hear. But shout out to them for keeping on and not giving up And it was awesome to see. And like I said, those nurses and the staff there just make it feel like welcome and heard and seen was really cool. This is gonna sound weird. I last night was the first night in my own bed in over 2 weeks, and not sleeping in a hospital chair. And like there were a couple times like I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought I was still like in the hospital chair just next to, even though I was laying next to my wife, like thought that she was in like the hospital bed and I was just lying in the hospital chair next to her, because it just felt surreal just being home. So shout out to the people out there who are doing what they can. I know there's a lot of things fucked in the healthcare industry and messed up, but when you find people who are like genuine and want to make a difference and want to help you as a patient and help you feel heard, that is huge. So I can't say enough good things about the team and the people we interacted with. Excited. I think after the past year of not being able to do much, my wife and I were talking, I think 2026 is going to be a year with more adventures, more traveling, more doing some things, like getting out there and living. We've been kind of sidetracked for a bit. So maybe you'll see some more fun content like that on the podcast. But I think that'll do it for this week's episode. Like I said, I know it's completely different from what I usually do. So if you still watched and were interested, thank you. I'm glad to be getting back to normal. Just to see my wife like not in that level of pain and be able to do things is huge, because it is very hard as like a spouse, or even like if you have a friend going through stuff with like chronic pain and you just feel so helpless because there's nothing you can do to physically help them. Like with the pain, to take that away. And so it's just having to constantly be doing like emotional support and trying to encourage them and show empathy and lift them up and maybe pick up the slack and some physical stuff. Like that can be draining. So people who are dealing with a loved one going through that and may not have the support system that I was lucky to have around me, with family and in-laws that were able to step up and help, or understanding jobs like I had, that can be difficult. So feel for all the people with that. But thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being understanding with the kind of chaos of the podcast over the past year. I'm hard on myself. I think I'm my harshest critic. And so when I feel like the quality's dropping, it's hard on me. And so that's what this week I'm like, I did not have time to prepare anything. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. So that's why you got some real personal stuff that you probably don't care about. So now you know it though, at least through my rambling tale of it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, subscribing, liking, sharing, all that fun stuff. Next week, like I said, hope to have Brad on and talk about The Emperor's New Clothes. You can watch on Amazon Prime right now. And then we'll see you in a couple weeks to talk about what's coming to theaters and streaming in March and what my Broadway season is going to look like. And then a review of A Music Man shortly after that. So some fun things coming up. So lots to look forward to on the pod. Thank you all for being here. Love y'all. Don't forget to go down once more. Later.